Hello everyone, this is part 73 of What If Naruto Meets the Nine Tails Early, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. What had just happened? 1 minute, they were on the lookout for the attackers that had been troubling the village, and the next, they were surrounded by a dozen of demon-masked ninja. Before they could even react, a massive explosion beneath them sent them tumbling into a dark abyss. If they were enemies, his negative emotion sensing should have picked up on them. But why didn't it? And Hinata-chan had scanned the village no more than a minute beforehand. Where the hell did they come from? Naruto groaned, but found himself unable to move and pinned beneath something. It was dark and damp and he couldn't make out anything. There was also a pain that shot through his abdomen. Thankfully his arms were free and he was able to make a quick hand seal. Kaiten, great fireball jutsu. With a pained breath, Naruto shot a small fireball forward, hoping to get some form of light to illuminate the darkness. The initial burst provided a little bit of light, just long enough for Naruto to make out that he was inside some sort of cave. Thankfully, despite it being a cavern of rock, there was something for the fire to catch on and a small flame grew, giving Naruto a longer period of time to examine the situation. It was definitely some sort of cave, and the only source of light was that fire he had created on a piece of wood that stuck out from what appeared to be a massive pile of debris. Again, pain shot through his abdomen and Naruto looked down to see a piece of wood jammed in his gut. His lower body was also pinned underneath a pile of rubble as he managed to make a few clones to clear the rubble. Once the rubble was clear, the next part was the most painful as he grabbed the stake from his abdomen and ate it out. Kurama, patching you up now, Kit, said Kurama as Naruto could feel Kurama's chakra focus around the site of his wound. Finally, Naruto was able to pull himself to his feet. Everything else felt fine and he even noticed his sword lying just a few meters from him. Looking over behind the rock, Naruto's heart sank and panic set in. Hinata. Naruto rushed over towards Hinata, who was also buried underneath a pile of rubble, and began frantically digging her out. As he was finally able to pull her from the rubble, he was thankful that she was alive, but she still hadn't regained consciousness. A steady trickle of blood flowed from her forehead and another pool of blood began to form on her thigh. The blonde popped a scroll from his jacket and unsealed some basic medical supplies as he began to bandage the wound on Hinata's head. Hinata's eyes scrunched before they slowly opened themselves. Naruto-kun. Naruto's attention was caught by Hinata's voice as he let out a sigh of relief, seeing that she was going to be awake. What happened? Asked Hinata. I don't know, replied Naruto. I don't know where those guys came from. I couldn't sense them at all. Hinata shifted her weight, trying to get up, but immediately collapsed to the ground in pain as she clutched her leg. It hurts, cringed Hinata as she activated her Byakugan to examine her own leg. It's broken, but the break's clean. The young Hyuga then activated one of the medical jutsus she had been taught, hoping to try and patch her broken leg up as best she could. Hinata-chan, can you see Shikamaru or Tenten? Asked Naruto. Hinata focused her attention away from the wound for a second as she scanned the area with her Byakugan. I can see them. They're moving, but they're on the other side of this pile, said Hinata. All four of them had fallen into some sort of cave with the debris from the explosion and collapse separating them. Looking around, she also noticed what appeared to be a pickaxe lying on the ground nearby. The village was known for its mining industry, but to think the mines tunneled directly beneath the town. That would explain the predicament they were in at this very moment. Right, let's get this rubble moved out of the way, get Shikamaru and Tenten, and get out of here, declared Naruto as he charged up a Rasengan in his hand, it into the collapsed cavern ceiling. A massive tremor and falling rocks were a clear signal to Naruto that the mine wasn't sturdy enough for Naruto to be drilling through with his Rasengan. As Naruto swore at the blockage, Hinata caught something out of the corner of her vision. Naruto-kun. Naruto's head immediately showed towards where Hinata was motioning to as one of the masked demons phased out of the wall of the cavern, a Tanto aimed to run him through. Having just enough time, Naruto unsealed his knives from his gloves and deflected the tanto before jamming the blunt end of a knife into the side of the demon's head, throwing him back against the collapsed portion of the mine. The sound of a fist hitting the cave wall alerted Naruto to the presence of another attacker as Hinata tried to strike with an open palm, but seeing as her leg was still broken, the pain was more than enough to slow her down to the point where her attacker could dodge and her palm crashed into the cavern wall. As the demon prepared an attack on Hinata, Naruto let loose one of his kunai, infused with wind chakra as it sailed clean through the demon's head. Naruto-kun, they're coming from everywhere, alerted Hinata as her Byakugan was picking up a number of chakra signatures closing in on him through the cave walls. Naruto barely dodged another attack while Hinata moved out of the way of one despite the pain in her leg. It was then that she felt herself being picked up as she clung to Naruto's back while the blonde made a dash along the cave, hoping to outrun their attackers. Kurama, why can't I sense any of their attacks? Not sure myself, Kit. Negative emotions sensing picks up on the hatred, desire, anxiety, and the like. However, I'm not picking up anything from these guys. They feel kind of like numb nuts, said Kurama. If they had the chance to look back, then they'd wave seen the body of the demon Naruto turn white and crumble to gravel and dust, with the exception of the head. Troublesome, groaned Shikamaru as he pulled himself out of what felt like a pile of rubble. Despite the lack of light, Shikamaru did an initial check, making sure both arms and legs were still attached and had feeling. For a few seconds after, Shikamaru was cursing himself. It had been a trap. The entire mission had been set up with the whole purpose of luring his team, or most likely Naruto, out of Konoha. He knew something was fishy about this mission and he was already starting to beat himself up for not noticing sooner. A faint green light filled the corner of Shikamaru's vision as a glow stick in Tenten's hands lit up. With the added light, Shikamaru was able to get a better look at himself. Everything about him seemed to be intact. A few scrapes and see here and there, but nothing that would condemn him to a hospital bed for an extended period. Damn. Tenten, you okay? Shikamaru asked. Mostly. I can walk and everything feels attached still, but my left side's in pain. I think I may have cracked a rib or two, said Tenten. What happened? It was a trap, said Shikamaru, and Tenten swore under her breath. So, where are we? Asked Tenten. Shikamaru reached down and picked up what appeared to be a mining tool that was partially buried underneath the rubble. Looks like we're in a mine shaft. Must be from one of the mines that support this town. To think they run this close to the village though, we can't have fallen that far, so we can't be that far beneath the surface, said Shikamaru before a tremor shook the cavern, coming from the other side of the collapsed portion of the mine. Said tremor caused a few rocks on the ceiling to nearly fall on top of the two Chunin. What was that? Asked Tenten. However, she didn't need Shikamaru's genius to answer that. Naruto, they said in unison. Hopefully he doesn't do that again, groaned Shikamaru. This mine shaft doesn't look very stable and that explosion from above certainly didn't help. Well, looks like digging through this is out of the question. And I take it explosions are out too, mentioned Tenten, getting a nod from Shikamaru. Just great, a lot of my techniques are explosion based. It'll make running into those guys a pain. I don't think we'll have to worry about them, hopefully, said Shikamaru. I don't think we're their targets. Then that means, yeah, we've got to find some way to meet up with them and quick. I kinda wish Hinata were here. Her Byakugan would be nice. Jump. Naruto jumped just in time to dodge another strike from one of the demons before raising into the demon's back. That had been the second demon he killed, but from the sounds of it, there were still many more behind him. It was still pitch black and Naruto was relying heavily upon Hinata's guidance to tell him which way to go. The Rasengan he kept charged in his one hand provided a little light, just enough for him to see the next step or two ahead of him so that he didn't trip over a rock. But it seemed the real benefit of the Rasengan was it gave Hinata light. While even the Byakugan had trouble seeing in pitch black, the glow of the chakra and how it reflected off the cave walls gave Hinata enough to see and guide them. Hard left, 20 meters. Just in time, Naruto saw the passage Hinata mentioned, a fraction of a second before he made the turn down it. If he stopped, the dozen or so pursuers would catch them. Could he defeat him down here? Even he doubted that. If what Hinata was saying was true, they had the elemental advantage, being able to travel through the very earth itself, hinting that they were earth users. Sage mode was out because stopping would mean they'd catch him. Kurama's power was also out. Have you ever tried to cram a building-sized fox into a mineshaft just barely large enough for 2 people? And then there was Hinata on his back. The state of her leg would leave her at a severe disadvantage against these guys, and he didn't think he could fight him off without putting her in grave danger. Even if he put himself between him and her, they could come from anywhere in here and get Hinata before he could react. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto made as many clones as he could cram in the already small mine shaft in a way so that they wouldn't impede his progress. Doton, Jaws of Hell. Naruto-kun. Hinata's warning came as she noticed the walls of the cave fill with chakra. In that instant, he called upon just enough of Kurama's chakra to boost his speed, as he barely darted past dozens of earthen spears erupting from the cavern walls, all of his clones. Right now, his only hope was to trust in Hinata and her eyes as she tried to guide them out of this mine shaft. The darkness was a pain and it was severely limiting Hinata's range as she pumped as much chakra as she could into her Byakugan, hoping to give it more power and increase its range in the underground darkness. If they hit AS end, then it was over. This way, called out Shikamaru. Wait, how do you know where to go? Called out Tenten. For the past few minutes Shikamaru had been leading them through varying turns and passages of the mine. How did Shikamaru know where they were going? They had to have gotten lost by now, cursed to wander the mines for the rest of the days. Shikamaru made a quick turn around a corner and Tenten just groaned as the Narutonin made another turn into the dark abyss. Where are you going? You're just going to get us more lost, complained Tenten. If we just go back to the rubble, maybe I can seal it away. No, we need to regroup with Naruto and Hinata somehow, said Shikamaru. We'll meet them on the surface. But how can you be certain of that? If Hinata's with Naruto, her Byakugan should be able to guide him out. But that still doesn't change the fact that we have no idea how to get out of here. Tenten stopped. She couldn't believe that Shikamaru of all people would run off and get her lost in a cave. If she expected anyone to get her lost in a cave, it was the 2 spandex knuckleheads she called sensei and teammate. Shikamaru ducked into another passage and she just let out a sigh. Oi, come on, called Shikamaru. Tenten groaned but dragged herself around the corner and further into the mine. However, a speck of silver light at the end of the tunnel was a pleasant surprise to Tenten's eyes. There's no way. How did you know this was the correct way? Gasped Tenten. Wind. But there's no wind down, and then Tenten felt a slight breeze. It just finished storming today and now the pressure outside is rising as the storm system moves away. The air from the outside rushes into the cave to balance out the lower air pressure inside the cave, creating the breeze I used to guide us to an exit. As Shikamaru and Tenten proceeded towards the cave exit, they were stopped by a sudden drop-off that led to the moonlit river below. Said river was easily a good 5 kilometers from town, and they were only searching above ground. So, this is how they did it. Tenten shot Shikamaru a questioning look, wondering what he was talking about. This is how they got through our guard, said Shikamaru. Hinata scanned the outer perimeter of the village, thinking they'd invade the village from the outside, not below. Shikamaru pointed to the other side of the river. If I'm correct, that's the land of grass across the river. These demons must have snuck into the village by entering the mines through here. If they had entered by any other exit, the miners and villagers would have noticed something and their cover as mysterious demons would have gone out the door. At least, that's my guess anyways. But how would they get from the mines to the village? Did they dig their way to the surface? A strong enough earth user can travel through the earth without too much trouble, said Shikamaru. And based on that one guy you fought, that's the case with our opponents. The 2 Konoha shinobi darted up the side of the cliff until they were back above ground, on a small crest overlooking the village. The main mine entrance is this way, let's go, said Shikamaru as he and Tenten nodded. With any luck, they'd be able to enter the mine from the other end and meet up with Naruto and Hinata. Hopefully they hadn't gotten themselves into too much trouble. Daichi-sama. The target's nearing point A, demon, said appearing next to a blonde-haired man who was also accompanied by a red-haired man. The blonde man had his open palm placed against the earth. Yes, I can feel them approach, said Daichi. Order the operatives to fall back. There's no need to waste tools unnecessarily. Daichi then turned to his red-haired accomplice. This goes against everything I stand for. Shinobi exist only to serve. They are to be emotionless tools in the service of their master. However, desperate times call for desperate measures. Don't you agree, Roshi? I may not have succeeded in achieving the same control Han, but I believe by channeling the hatred of our village, I can at least direct the beast's rage at the Namikas, said Roshi. Who knows? Maybe after this I'll pay Konoha a little visit. So you're sure about this? Yes. I said I'd do whatever it took to rid our village of this threat. If it means giving in to the beast within me, then so be it, so long as the Namika's line ends, resolved Roshi. Just undo the seal and get out of my way. Very well. As a presence made itself known to Daichi, he saw a hint of blonde hair approach the cave. Let's begin. Katsu. S. Naruto swore as he noticed the shaft they were running along came to an abrupt end just ahead. There's a passage just on the other side of the wall, Naruto-kun, advised Hinata. Looks like he was tunneling his way through this one. Naruto increased the power of his Rasengan so that he was now holding an Odoma Rasengan Begor it into the wall, praying to whatever kami would listen that Hinata was right. The blonde barely slowed as he felt his jutsu break through. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glint of moonlight to the right as he made a hard turn and bolted off in that direction. Just a little more and they hear home free. Naruto-kun, they're falling back. Hell yeah. We are out of here. An explosion rocked the mine shaft just as Kurama's warning came, collapsing the cavern around him as Kurama pumped more chakra into Naruto's legs. From behind them, the blast helped in propelling them forward as they dove out of the cave. Yeah. Take that, you bastards. No. We're in trouble now, Yon. Naruto looked up just in time to see what Kurama was freaking out about as two men stood in front of them. Before he could even register what was going on, the man with blonde hair d his hand into the other man's gut before giving it a big twist and unleashing a massive wave of chakra that Naruto knew all too well, Biju chakra. In a fiery eruption, chakra surrounded the red-headed man's beast emerged as Naruto and Hinata found themselves staring at the steaming form of the Yonbi. With a mighty roar, the giant monkey quickly charged up a Bijudama before shooting it virtually point-blank at Naruto and Hinata. Naruto's mind slowed in that instant. He could call on Kurama's powers, hoping to shield him from the blast. He could survive in Kyuubi form, but Hinata, she'd get wiped away by the explosion. However, something else was calling out to Naruto, a voice. He knew that voice from somewhere, his sword. In that one moment before the Bijudama connected, Naruto did as the voice instructed and his blade into the Bijudama, creating an explosion and a bright flash of light. We should almost be there, said Shikamaru as he and Tenten raced towards the mine entrance. Not too far from the current position, maybe a few hundred meters at most, the sound of an explosion rocked the night air. Over there, Tenten called out as she noticed a plume of smoke rise above the trees to their 2 o'clock. However, just as they were getting close, the towering figure of a giant monkey rose above and a ball of chakra began to form in its mouth. Shikamaru, is that? Tenten gasped. Troublesome, groaned Shikamaru. This mission was turning out to be much more difficult than anything they could have ever imagined. The presence of the Yonbi could only mean one group was behind these attacks, Iwa. The Yonbi unleashed its ball of chakra and a bright eruption of light exploded from where the entrance to the mine should have been. However, the explosion was something else as a Bijudama, even a small one, should have caught them in the ensuing fallout as well. Naruto opened his eyes, trying to get a survey on the situation at hand. He and Hinata had just outrun an explosion-caused cave-in, only to come face to face with the Yonbi. However, instead of staring at the Yonbi, Naruto found himself alone in a blank white space, alone with the exception of a man standing directly across from him. Said man was elderly and garbed in an older style of battle armor. He had red hair that was mostly grayed by age. However, the most notable thing to Naruto was the headband he wore, indicating his allegiance, Azushiogakur. Where are we? What's going on? Who are you? Asked Naruto, trying to make sense of where he was and who this man standing before him was. The man in front of him said nothing, though he did point towards Naruto's right hand. As the blonde looked down in his hand, he noticed he was still gripping his sword, but the sword had most definitely seen better days as the blade had been shattered just above the hilt, leaving only a small piece of the blade still attached to the hilt. However, that motion of the man gave Naruto all he needed to know. Uzumaki, Arashi. The man nodded in acknowledgement. What did you do? Am I still alive? Hinata-chan. What about Hinata-chan? Arashi just stood there as he began to glow and specks of light began to float off of him. Naruto had seen something like this before, when he and his parents bid their final farewells. It was the sign of a soul passing on into the next world. I see, so you were sealed within my sword, realized Naruto as he thought back to the Uzumaki scrolls he had recently started to look at. Arashi just gave Naruto a nod as more of his form started to disappear. I take it this is goodbye then. Arashi just solemnly nodded at Naruto once again. I see, well then, thanks for watching over me these past few years. And please tell everyone else the clan's in good hands. A warm smile appeared on Arashi's quickly disappearing face as he gave the blonde a nod. However, before crossing over, Arashi left one last message for Naruto. These were the first coherent words that Naruto had heard from the spirit within his blade, and the last. I'm glad the two of you finally reconciled your differences. I leave everything in your hands, my sons. A ring in his ear was the first thing Naruto noticed as he came to, finding himself blown back into a pile of rubble. As his vision began to clear, Naruto could still make out the towering form of the Yonbi. However, the Yonbi's eyes were closed shut and his hands clenched over top of them, most likely trying to block out the flash of light from whatever that was. Naruto's eyes drifted downwards towards where his sword should be and noticed only the hilt gripped in his right hand. So that's what happened. Arashi had managed to absorb the Bijudama, but by doing so, the blade shattered. Apparently the raw power contained in a Bijudama, even a low-powered one, was too much for the seals on the blade to absorb at once, overloading the blade and resulting in the flash of light. Turning to his left, Naruto's eyes shot wide open as he saw Hinata lying in the rubble next to him, looking in even worse shape than she did before. Not only was there more blood coming from her head, but there was a small trickle coming from her mouth as well, along with a number of other wounds and bruises. Was she still alive? Thankfully, Naruto could make out the slight rise and fall of her sea, but it was labored. He needed to get Hinata out of here. Another attack, she wouldn't survive. A roar broke Naruto out of his gaze as the Yonbi regained its sense of sight and a wave of raw determination flowed through Naruto. He had to protect Hinata from this threat. They were after him and him alone. He wouldn't allow any of his precious people suffer because of his fight. As the Yonbi lashed out with a mighty punch, Naruto caught it with an orange, fox-like claw as he initiated the transformation into full QB mode. With a mighty push, Naruto forced the giant ape back, causing the Yonbi to fall over and surprising even Kurama. To be able to overpower Son Goku, the one with the most brute strength out of all the Biju, that was nothing but pure willpower, thought Kurama. His innermost desire to protect his vixen. That was the source of that burst of strength there that was even able to overpower Son Goku. Carefully, Naruto reached down and scooped Hinata up in his foxy hand, taking extra caution to cradle her and not cause any additional harm to come to the young Hyuga beauty. Naruto, Kurama called out in Naruto's head. Do you think she's going to be alright? Naruto asked. Think we can work a quick patch job on her like you did with Sasuke or Fu? I doubt Son's going to give us time for that, replied Kurama. Besides, you know, there's a chance for unintended consequences if we use my chakra to heal others. I think she's going to be fine, but we need to get her out of here. Naruto nodded in understanding before darting off in a direction away from Son, and the nearby village. Within moments of taking off, he felt two presences land on his back as he came to a halt. Naruto. Naruto recognized the voice as Shikamaru, who jumped and landed on the foxy Jinchuriki's snout and looked his comrade in the eye. Hinata, Naruto spoke, a mixture of his own voice and Kurama's. You and Tenten need to get Hinata-chan out of here. I'll deal with them while the three of you get away. Shikamaru and Tenten wanted to argue, but it would be too troublesome to argue with a gigantic fox right now, especially with the Yonbi charging at them. Shikamaru and Tenten nodded as they jumped down and carefully moved Hinata onto Shikamaru's back before taking off in the direction of the village while Naruto turned and jumped out of the way, just in time to avoid a hard punch from the Yonbi. Kurama, do you know who it is I'm fighting? Is this the Iwa Jinchuriki or is this the Yonbi? From what I saw, Sun's seal wasn't released up until the very moment we encountered them, said Kurama. However, to say Sun and his Jinchuriki are working together would be pushing it. It's more appropriate to say that the Jinchuriki is using his rage and anger at you to guide the overgrown ape. Sun's never liked humans that much due to the lack of respect your species has shown us, so Sun's happy to go along with the Jinchuriki's gamble. Though, I don't see how the Jinchuriki's going to regain control in the end. So long story short, yeah, Sun's gone berserk and won't stop unless we can beat him, replied Kurama. As the Yonbi changed course towards Naruto, the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki let out a flare of foxfire, only for Sun to barrel straight through it. Sun's element is lava, a sub-element consisting of earth and fire, said Kurama. Any fire-based attacks you use are going to have minimal damage on him at best. Just great, groaned Naruto. As Sun lashed out with a punch, Naruto ducked underneath the giant fist, and as he prepared himself to jump into Sun to try and tackle the Monkey King, the ground beneath Naruto crumbled, eliminating his grounding and giving Son Goku the opportunity to s his hands down directly on Naruto's back. Damn, swore Shikamaru as he looked back to see Naruto sink slightly into the ground and Sun's fists s down on top of him. It didn't take Shikamaru long to figure out what was going on. Everything about this mission was a trap to get to Naruto, with the Yonbi being the main way to counter the Kyuubi's power. However, just because the trap had progressed to the phase with the Yonbi, that didn't mean the role the ninja attackers played was at an end. The question was, what could humans do against a Biju? Not much, except create an opening for another Biju to deal some serious damage, the same thing that had likely just happened with Naruto. A shift in movement from his back signaled Shikamaru to make a quick stop. Naruto-kun, muttered Hinata as she regained consciousness. Looking over, they saw the giant fox struggle to get up from underneath Sun's pin while putting some distance between him and the giant ape. However, they could tell Naruto was hurting after taking that hit. A few more like that last one, and even Shikamaru was doubting Naruto could hold together. Shikamaru, you have to help, Naruto-kun. I know, but we promised Naruto we'd get you out of here, said Shikamaru. We need to get you to safety. Naruto should be able to hold out long enough. As Shikamaru said that, Naruto stumbled again in the distance, getting hit again by the Yonbi. This blow, while more of a glancing blow, was still enough to send the giant fox sliding back a few hundred meters. Naruto can't use his more destructive attacks without us or even the nearby mining village getting caught in the blast, thought Shikamaru. The Narutonin felt Hinata begin to move on his back as her hands made a familiar set of seals. Summoning Jutsu. Expending a good portion of her remaining chakra, Hinata summoned. Hinata-sama, how may I be of service? The white tigress Nishiko spoke. We need you to take Hinata to a safe place. Away from that, said Shikamaru, pointing in the direction of the fighting Biju as he carefully placed Hinata on her summons' back. Please, take care of Naruto-kun. Hinata struggled to get out, obviously in pain as Nishiko carried her away. So, what do we do now, Shikamaru? Tenten asked as the two observed the ants battling in the distance. They watched as Naruto dodged another attempted S by the Yonbi, only for the giant monkey's fists to S into the ground below and a massive tremor to shake the ground before a rain of molten rocks filled the air before beginning the descent back to the earth around. I have an idea, but it'll be dangerous. How much ninja wire do you have on you, and do you have any lightning or electricity sealed away? Naruto brought his tails up to fend off the molten rocks, despite Kurama's complaining and the smell of burnt fox fur. Putting some distance between them and making sure nothing important was in the line of fire, Naruto gathered up the chakra for a Bijudama quickly. The uncompressed and compressed versions were out because the resulting shockwave would likely level the entire area, including his comrades and the nearby village, but the spread option was still viable, and with any luck, he'd be able to eliminate those pesky ninja that were doing just enough to throw him off for Sun. Unleashing the spread shot version of the Bijudama, Sun stopped in his tracks and brought his arms up to brace for the impact as the energy tore through the land and engulfed the giant monkey. When the dust cleared, Naruto grinned at the smoking Yonbi lying flat on his back. The spread shot version was the weakest of the Bijudama versions to use on a single target, but it still did enough damage to repel Son Goku. Blown back, the Yonbi pulled himself to his feet while forming his own Bijudama, and Naruto set into panic mode again. If that thing got off, it was likely the ensuing shockwave would catch Hinata, Shikamaru, and Tenten. Naruto, give me control, said Kurama as Naruto put his trust in the demon. Kurama immediately went to work creating a Bijudama, identical in strength to Sun's before the overgrown ape unleashed his. Not a fraction of a second later, Kurama aimed and unleashed his. What the hell, Kurama? Shouted Naruto. The blast from that thing's gonna get Hinata-chan. Just shut up and watch. From inside, Naruto watched on as the two Bijudamas collided with one another, but Kurama's attack hit slightly lower than Sun's and the two spheres of chakra were forced upwards into the air where they detonated. The dispersion of their energy, while enough to create a noticeable shockwave, was much less violent than it would have been if they had detonated at ground level. If Sun tries to use a Bijudama like that again, charge up one of equal power and aim just beneath his, said Kurama. The two spheres will stop each other cold, but because ours is lower, it will send them both into the air to safely detonate. Right, I got it, I think, said Naruto as he took back control. Across from him, Sun ate up the ground beneath him and unleashed a wave of molten hot lava upon the two. Naruto attempted run, but something had snared his back leg. Damn it, they're still there. The foxy Jinchuriki swore as he looked back to see a few of the demon-masked ninja behind him, ensnaring his back leg in what appeared to be an earthen bear trap. Those earth jutsus they were using weren't enough to harm a Biju, but they were definitely annoying. As the wave of lava crept closer, Naruto s down on the earth surrounding his back feet with one of his tails before darting out of the way of the lava flow. He would have been content to do such had it not have been for the lava flow heading directly towards the Shinzukana and all the innocent villages. Was this another reason they didn't just outright K the villagers? So they could use the town as a way to make him fight defensively and hold back on power. Naruto darted around the lava flow, gathering chakra for a Bijudama and took aim at the rapidly shrinking plot of land between the lava flow and village before unleashing the spread shot Bijudama to carve a trench in the earth before the town, diverting the lava flow away from the village. Once again, Naruto felt someone land on top of his head as Shikamaru caught his attention. What are you doing here? Didn't I tell you to get away? What about Hinata-chan? Calm down, Naruto, said Shikamaru. Hinata should be okay. One of her summons took her to the safety of the village. Tenten and I figured you could use a hand with that little pest problem you're having. Can you lead him over that way? Naruto looked over in the direction Shikamaru was pointing, towards a mountain valley and away from the village, and nodded before taking off with Shikamaru clinging tight. However, the Yonbi didn't pursue as he continued on towards the village. He needed to get Sun's attention, but most of his attacks were widespread. However, he did have one or two that were focused and should get the overgrown ape's attention. Gathering fire chakra, Naruto compressed and tuned it into a fine beam before taking aim at Son Goku. The pinpoint beam clean through two of the Yonbi's tails, causing the monkey to cry out in pain before turning to Naruto. Yeah, he was mad now as Naruto darted off towards where Shikamaru was directing him. Good, now just hold tight until those demon-masked shinobi make their move, said Shikamaru. As Sun barreled towards Naruto. When I give the signal, jump. As Sun approached Naruto, the monkey reared back a fist as Naruto dodged the first few swipes until he felt it, those demon-masked ninja trying to restrain him again. Kaiten, flame bullet, said Shikamaru as he shot a flame upwards. Just as Naruto saw Shikamaru do that, he reared back onto his tails and used them as a springboard to break free of the earthen snares, just in time to escape the entire valley beneath them light up in a crackle of electricity. Looking down, Naruto saw what Shikamaru was planning as 7 or so demon-masked ninja emerged from the ground as electricity surged through them. I have to admit, good pick choosing Tenten as the fourth, admitted Shikamaru. She's very convenient to have around. Down below, Tenten channeled the electricity she had stored in a pair of scrolls into the lengths of ninja wire that spanned the valley, many times over. She couldn't hear much over the crackling of electricity, but she could make out the words, Tenten, and, convenient, coming from what sounded like Shikamaru as she groaned. Though not much more than an annoying tickle, the electricity coursing through the valley was enough to distract the Yonbi as Naruto descended downwards. Hold on, Shikamaru, spoke Naruto as he did a mid-air spin and smacked Son Goku in the back with his tails, hard. The Yonbi stumbled forward flat on his face as Tenten's electricity ran out. It had done its job, flushing the demon-masked ninja out of the ground. Son growled as he picked himself up from the ground, only to be tackled by Naruto as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki wrapped him up with his tails in a way that prevented the Yonbi from gaining any sort of leverage. Despite being exceptionally strong, without any leverage, Naruto could restrain Sun. Naruto reeled back a fist and punched Sun in the head a number of times, before the Yonbi finally managed to free one of his arms to block. As Naruto struck once more, the Yonbi flew a fist forward, hoping to strike the Kyuubi as their fists met and Naruto's mind was pulled inward. To be continued. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.